Well, today I break down the hardest thing I've ever had to troubleshoot on an HEI distributor. Most of it's just due to mass production manufacturing and send a lot of it overseas. And it literally is one of the toughest things I ever had to figure out on my own. And there's very little information about it on the web. The big thing is when you have an HEI distributor, the first things you normally replace in a 50-year-old distributor is the pickup coil that's directly underneath the rotor. You have to disassemble the complete distributor to get to it, but when you install a new one, you expect it to kind of be good to go. Well, in the Chevrolet's case, it's probably just fine, but for a Buick fan, you're sucking, because generally what I've found is almost all of these pickup coils have a reverse polarity magnet in there, and it's installed upside down, and it causes so many problems. When you first put it together, it'll run. It just runs like crap, and the timing's all out to whack, and you can't figure out what's going on with it. And generally, if you're most likely a Buick fan with your new pickup coil, you probably took the HEI distributor out and like screwed on going back to points. But in reality, here's the fix for that, and it works for Oldsmobile, Pontiac, the whole 9 yards. Anything that has a different configuration than a Chevrolet, but I think it has to do with, because the Chevrolet distributor rotates the same direction as a Buick, but I think it's because it's on the other side of the camshaft that it causes this issue. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not an engineer by any means, but I figured it out by accident a couple of years ago when I found one that was it was out of phase, right? So the polarity is wrong, and the Lemons car was no exception. We put it together, started it up, and it was like, what in the world is causing this thing to have timing up at 48 degrees? And I realized it after a few minutes, like, oh man, I've run into this before. This is a polarity issue on that magnet. So I'm gonna show you how to break down the distributor, identify the polarity, and hopefully get it back together, installed, and running properly. So bear with me. Today's gonna be, hopefully you brought your calculator and your spectacles so you can get very nerdy on some science stuff. So I ran into this problem initially on the Suburban, and it drove me nuts for like 6 months. But in the Lemons car, when we fired it up, the timing was at 48 degrees, and that's the only way it would actually run worth of crap. And I couldn't figure out why. It still was a dog. And then it dawned on me, this same problem that plagued the Suburban is what plagues this distributor. Okay, so this is a regular HEI distributor. The only thing I've done is knock the gear off the end, remove the shim in the pin, the roll pin out of it, so that the distributor itself is separable, right? And it has a brand new pickup coil in it. Okay, it's brand spanking new. So you just need to remove the center distributor shaft, and then you can get down to your pickup coil and stuff here. But what the biggest problem is this: on an HEI distributor, the pickup coil, when it's bad, it'll have like a miss at an idle, and it'll or part throttle. It'll have like a dead spot that it just won't work. Sometimes it just won't run at all, right? This is really just an inductor, which is a winding, a coil winding with a magnet, and then on the very top is this steel sleeve that has these pickup points on there for your distributor. So when your shaft is in the center, when the if you can see it, when the 8 points line up is when it actually sends a signal to the module to fire the coil. Okay. Now, what I found is these aren't all the same. They're not exactly the same, right? An Oldsmobile is wound the other direction because it turns the other way on the pickup coil. The Chevrolet is the exact same pickup coil as a Buick, but the polarity of this magnet is different. And here's where the problem lies within this distributor. This magnet polarity is backwards. It's actually set up for a Chevrolet. Even though this is a pickup coil that I bought initially, it's a GP Sorensen piece. It's for Buick, but the pickup coil is wrong, okay? The coil itself is fine. It's the magnet. The magnet polarity is backwards. So the reason that I found it by mistake. So here's the one that I originally took out of the Suburban. Okay, it says magnet polarity backwards, right, for Buick. So it's actually for a Chevrolet. Okay, and how I found it was this. I had an old pickup coil that actually functioned, but the coil itself was bad. So you had your dead spot when you'd give it part throttle, or you'd accelerate and it would pop and miss. So I had pulled it out and I'd replaced it before. And what I did was, you go to set it on top. Like I thought, all right, well, I'll do something with this coil. You can't, because it fights it, right? Okay, it fights it because the polarity, like on magnets, the opposites attract, okay? So the south end and the north end would attract towards each other. But in this case, you're looking at, this is fighting being on this other magnet, okay? And if that was the case, if this polarity was correct, I know this polarity is correct because the distributor, it actually runs, you can time it, it just has a dead spot. But when you put this one on here, it won't line up, it fights you, right? And it tries to push it off center so that it can actually stick. But if you try to set it on top of each other, it just goes nuts. Now, if this, let's just say, I don't know what poles or what on this, but let's just say the top of this magnet, at the very top where it's actually seated against the steel ring, okay, that's the north, and then the bottom would be the south, okay? If that was the case, that means this here would have to be the south on the top end and the north on the bottom, all right? But you can't put them together, so that's why it is definitely, like, it's out of polarity on this one. And I'm almost certain the same thing has happened here on our other distributor. So we're going to go ahead and pull the magnet off, and we're going to verify that the polarity is incorrect. If it is, I'll probably just swap this piece on here, the magnet piece from this pickup coil, even though it's damaged the magnet taking it off, because they are originally glued into place, okay? And they do not like to come off. But I found that 99% of these replacement pickup coils are set up for a Chevrolet, and that's because I don't think that the factory that's making them overseas, that they know that the polarity is different. They've never seen an HEI. So we'll go ahead and pull this off, and we'll check the polarity of it. I mean, I can actually check the polarity of it now while it's sitting here, and let's see. Okay. Now, remember, this one's backwards. So if this is north on the top, that's south on the bottom. And then that means this one would be north on top and south on the bottom. If it's backwards, then it'll stick right to it, right? Which it does. So the polarity is backwards on this one here. The only reason I keep this one is to verify the polarity, because I know it's wrong. So here's your definitive proof. Now what we're going to do is we're going to swap it around, and then we'll put it back together. We'll put it back into Lemon's car, and we'll time the engine, and I'll guarantee you it'll be dead on timing, and it'll work just fine. And the car will probably gain 100-something horsepower because it wouldn't even pull 10 inches of vacuum with this set up the way it is. Now, this probably doesn't want to come off easy. Well, I'm wrong. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll verify the polarity. Okay. Now these two shouldn't stick to each other, and it doesn't. It wants to force it around. All right. So we can technically just take this, swap it into place. Now what you want to do is, there's a tang right here on your pickup coil, and there's a tang on the magnet here. All right, you see that little tang? Those have to line up. Now, I believe the polarity is different on a Chevrolet than it is a Buick, just because I believe it rides on the other side of the cam, or it's 180 out, but that's what happens to that, is the phase is different. And they will run, it just don't run well. All right, now we swapped our pickup coil. Just reinstall your distributor shaft. All right, so our distributor is reassembled. You can feel the magnet pickup at the points. It's not hitting anything. So we're ready to reinstall. I got to put the springs and everything back on, and while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and change these. This is like an advanced curve kit that was in this distributor to begin with. I'm just going to pull it out. I'll put GM weights in there, but the GM weights that you choose is what's going to limit the advance, right? Some guys weld these slots up, stuff like that. If you just choose the correct centerpiece and then the weights, it will limit it to something that's manageable for what you have. So I'm just going to put, I'll probably stagger the springs. We want to try to get some type of fuel economy out of this because it is for the Lemons car, it's for a road race car. So it doesn't need brutal drag racing horsepower right off the line. It does need to retain something that resembles fuel economy so that we can finish the race without having a bunch of stops. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall or reassemble it, recurve it, reassemble it, and then we'll put it back in the car and we'll retime it, and I'll let you see how that goes. So I just finished reinstalling the distributor. I got the timing light hooked up. It should be really, really close, if not dead on. All I did was turn the motor over to essentially top dead center. It was actually 12 degrees before top dead center. Then I installed the distributor and I put it right on the #1 plug terminal, which is here. Okay, so this falls right back into place. You bump the motor over till it falls down the oil pump, and then voila, it should be really, really close. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a try. I've already got the battery and everything hooked up, so we'll see what happens. Oh, let me turn on the power. So you can see right there, we're actually, if you look at the timing light, so it's set on 0. So the timing mark should be at 12. It's actually about 10. So pretty close though. I guess it's warming up. But yeah, everything should be pretty close. And here we go. So now we've corrected the problem with our distributor. I know it kind of sounds like crap, but it's just because of the exhaust. Look where it goes. And then you got these glass backs way back here. So, the cheapest alternative. But so that's where we're at with the Lemons Buick. And I think we got the distributor resolved. So now we might have some torque and some power. So we'll get the carburetor dialed in. It hasn't been adjusted hardly at all. I tried fooling with it when the distributor was messed up and it was just a mess. So get it shut off here. But that's about all I got for you today on Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood. How to fix your wonky HEI distributor that filled with Chinesium. I'll see you later. Oh, hey, and don't forget, we're having an event called the No Name Nationals, Sykeston, Missouri, September 30th, October 1st. It's at Jeffers Motorsports Park. You can pre-register on nonamenationals.com. You can even buy pre-registered spectator tickets on there. You'll save yourself $5 on the spectator ticket. At the gate, it's going to be $20. Pre-registered is $15 a day. So make sure you head on over to nonamenationals.com and get yourself enrolled.